Everyone thought he was a lonely orphan, but his life changes when his childhood crush turns out to be a super dangerous spy and marries him. Asano was a happy young boy, but everything changed one day when his entire family got killed in a tragic car accident. He was the only one who was able to survive. With scars and bandages, this scares him so much that he refuses to make any friends because he can't bear to see them get hurt. The one person who decides to stick by him is his childhood friend, Mitsumi Yozakura, who is the only person he ever talks to. Several years have passed by since then, and they have both entered high school. But even after a month of being in the class, he refuses to make any friends. A small group of 3 guys constantly ask him to hang out and to be friends, but he keeps rejecting them every single day. Whereas Matsumi has gotten friendly with everyone and has become a high school idol who is every guy's crush. She walks over to Asano and sits down with him to eat food and tells him to go out with the boys, sometimes as they seem friendly. But Asano refuses to make any friends and instead turns it around, claiming that if she wants to be so friendly, why didn't she go out with a 3rd year who confessed his love for her? She tells him that she was not interested and takes out her lunchbox. But just as she was about to feed him, Hisa, who is the vice principal of the school, intercepts the bite and starts eating it. Asano is surprised as he never heard him coming, while an annoyed Matsumi tells him to go away. He tells her that he can't stop himself from having her tasty home-cooked food, but decides to leave before telling Asano to meet him in his chambers after school. Later that day, Asano heads over to his office, confused about why he wants to meet with him. He enters the room and is greeted by Hisai, who has prepared tea and asks him to sit down. Asano is extremely uncomfortable because of how close Hisa is sitting, but is shocked when Hisa starts asking about Matsumi and why is he so close to her. He starts feeling weird, while Hisa starts showing him pictures of Matsumi ever since she was a 3-year-old child, which is very weird as they have only known Hisa for a month. He continues telling Asano about how hard it is to keep boys off of her, and how he had to beat the crap out of the 3rd year guy before he promised never to look towards Matsumi again. Alarm bells start ringing in Asano's head, when suddenly Hisa takes out a knife and puts it at Asano's throat in a swift movement, telling him to say his prayers. When everything seemed lost, a white-haired girl enters the room through the window, stopping him and uses a flashbang to escape alongside Asano. He wakes up a while later in the evening and finds himself surrounded by a bunch of unfamiliar faces. His social anxiety kicks in, and he starts running away into the wall, confused about where he is. But Mutsumi tells her not to worry, as these people are all her siblings, and he is in the Yozakura house. She introduces everyone as the white-haired girl is called Fuda, the green-haired guy is Shinzo, the pink-haired girl is Shin, the furry is named Kengo, while the buckethead is named Nana. She tells him that they are a family of spies and feels relieved after finally telling him the truth, after hiding it for 10 years. He starts freaking out, but she tells her not to worry, as spies are very common nowadays, and you can even book them online. He still thinks it's a prank and grabs a gun from Shinzo, thinking it's a toy, but it ends up shooting, which scares the crap out of him, as his whole life turns upside down in a matter of minutes. Futa tells him that they are freelancers and actually have a 4.8-star rating on Trustpilot for completing their job. Kingo tells him that Hisa is the oldest sibling who stays the most in the limelight in the spy magazines and is responsible for boosting the image of their family so much. Fuda tells him that Hisa is the best spy in the entire family and apologizes on his behalf for endangering his life. She tells Asano that when Mutsumi was a child, there was a big accident in which she got terribly injured, and Hisa took all the blame on himself. Ever since then, he has become obsessed with the job of protecting her sister no matter what. But all these years, he let Asano slide because he was a childhood friend. It all changed recently when they got an online tip on Twitter about someone planning an assassination for Matsumi. This gave Hisa the excuse to get rid of Asano as well. Suddenly, an alarm starts sounding in the house, and everyone starts getting on their feet as Fuda tells him that Hisa must have entered the house. To finish him off, Asano starts freaking out, but she tells him not to worry, as he is probably the safest with them, but honestly tells him that even while fighting 5 against 1, their average win rate against him is only 30%. She turns towards Asano and tells him that the only way his life would truly be safe is if he marries Matsumi right now. She explains that their household has an unbreakable rule about not killing any family member, and even Hisa wouldn't break this rule. All Asano has to do is to exchange rings with Matsumi, and the marriage would be complete, and they could live as a family. The word family triggers his PTSD again, and he starts breathing heavily. But Matsumi tells Fuda that it would be very cruel to Asano, who is scared of making connections with people. Fuda apologies for being insensitive, and all of them start getting ready to beat Hisa. When suddenly, they notice that he has already entered the room and is sitting between them. He turns towards Shinzo and tells him that he destroyed all his traps, and tells them to hand Asano over. But Fuda steps up to him and grabs his tie. she starts swinging him around the air before slamming him to the ground, as Shinzo uses his robot arms to pin him down, and Nana takes some steroids to punch him in the face, while Kengo and Shin take Asano away with them. Unfortunately, Hisa is unhurt and uses his special move to blast both of them away, while he stands up, telling them that they leave too many gaps. Attacks. Asano is stunned to see how strong these people are, while Fuda tells them that she will buy them sometime. She runs over to him as Heza starts using his spider wire ability to block all her attacks before tying her up to the roof. Shin tells Kengo to hide Asano somewhere, while she takes out her phone and activates some drones that descend from the ceiling and start shooting at Hisa. Meanwhile, Kengo takes them to a different room, and together with Matsumi, they put Asano behind a hidden picture frame. A little while later, Hisa enters the room after destroying all the drones without a single scratch on his face, only to find Matsumi and Asano together in the room. He tells her to hand the boy over, but she starts running towards him with a gun alongside their dog, but Hisa is leagues above them and ties her up with her wires before removing her mask to reveal Tango inside. Knowing that it's of no use, even Mutsumi reveals himself wearing Asano's disguise and tells Hisa that Asano is of no danger to her. But Hisa tells him that there is only one way. He won't harm Asano, and that is if she agrees to never leave her home. This catches her off guard as he starts walking towards her, telling her that she will never have friends, never have any romances, any fun, and even will lose her internet privileges. But at least this will ensure that she will stay safe forever. He hugs her as she starts crying, as she knows there is no other option. But Asano, who was watching everything through a peephole, reveals himself and tells Matsumi that she doesn't have to do this. Heza tells him to piss off, as he has no use of him anymore. But Asano shouts at Matsumi to give her the ring, as he is ready to make her his family. Matsumi cries tears of joy as she takes out one of the rings and throws it towards Asano, who jumps forward to grab it. But to their dismay, Hisa is much faster and uses his spider wires to trap both him and the ring at the last moment. Just when Hisa thought it was finally all over, Asano shows him his tenacity and strength by powering through the wires that cut his hands to shreds. But he grabs the ring and wears it on his finger, completing the marriage and officially becoming a family member. As the others watch, Mutsumi hugs him tightly, while Fuda tells a distraught Hisa he can't hurt Asano and will also have to train him so that he can protect Mutsumi at all times. Later that night, Asano gets up to return, and even though Fuda offered to drop him back home, he refuses and decides to head home together, as he thinks Hisa needs more mental support right now. He lays down on his bed, looking at his ring, and thinking about the crazy day he has had before drifting into a deep sleep. The next morning, he wakes up by an alarm, and the moment he turns his eyes up, he spots Hise standing on top of him, with a knife in his hands. He tries to shank Asano, but he rolls away just in time to protect himself, which impresses Hise as he claims it was just a friendly test. He asks what the hell is Hise doing in his home, and he replies that this is the traditional wake-up call of the Yosakura family. Asano rightfully thinks that Hise was just trying to kill him, but Hayes claims that this is all part of his training, because to be a spy he needs to sleep, while basically keeping his eyes opened. He then tells him to get ready for traditional Yosakura morning exercise and uses his wires to completely tie him up in the air. Meanwhile, Matsumi was making lunch for the day and hears Asano screams, so she rushes up to see what's happening, only to find him suspended mid-air, while Hisa forces his body parts to stretch. She shouts at her brother to let him down, but Hisa simply looks at his watch and tells her that it's time they all left the house. He quickly grabs Matsumi and their bags, before jumping out the window as a bomb explodes inside Asano's house, blowing it to smithereens. Hisa puts them down and explains that Asano's house was rigged with a bomb. Sometime last night, he promises to explain more about it, but tells him to get one thing in his brain, which is the main goal of the family, is to protect Matsumi at all costs. He then tells them to get inside the car, while Matsumi helps him up inside the car. Hise talks with Shinzo, who found out that the bomb was rigged inside the kitchen, which means that the target of the assassination was Matsumi. Asano is very confused, but Hisa replies that information spreads very quickly in their lives, and the news about Matsumi's marriage has spread like wildfire, and almost everyone knows about it. He is still confused and asks why would they target Mutsumi, and Hayes replies that the answer to that is very simple. He claims that Mutsumi is the 10th head of the Yosakura family. Hisa further elaborates about their family history, and over the years they always took part in espionage, because their bloodline has a special power, which gives the Yasakura family children superhuman abilities according to him. In every generation, one of the Yasakura children are born without any superhuman abilities, and those have historically always been the head of the family. Heise claims that even though the head doesn't have any supernatural powers, they are the only one who could give birth to children with superhuman abilities. This means that without the head, the Yasakura lineage and its superhuman people will simply go extinct. And that's why Mutsumi is the legitimate head of the family, and the only person who can keep their bloodline alive, and gets a bit pissed off at the fact that such a loser ended up marrying her, because their family is so old and famous. They have tons of enemies that want to eradicate the Yasakura family, and the best way to do it is to get rid of Matsumi. While he was saying this, a car approaches behind them, and some people load and shoot a rocket launcher at them, which the driver manages to dodge in time. Asano gets scared while Heise seems completely chill, while their car gets shot at by multiple machine guns. He tells him not to worry, as the car is bulletproof, and tells the driver to go faster. The enemies give chase and take out a heavy-powered machine gun and start shooting at the limo, while Heist calmly drinks his tea. Mutsumi tells him not to worry as their pet dog, Goliath, is the best driver around, which freaks him out even more, while the enemies shoot rockets at them. The sharp turns end up spilling Heist's tea, which pisses him off, so he jumps on the roof and simply uses his wires to block all the bullets, while the rocket guy shoots another RPG at him, which gets utterly destroyed by his wires. After styling on them, he throws his wires and cuts the pursuing vehicles to shred, making them explode, and comes back inside as if nothing happened. He tells him that he has married Mutsumi, which means it is now his responsibility as well to protect Mutsumi at any cost. He hands Asano a gun and tells him to kill anyone who he suspects, and shows him the Twitter account of the person who rigged the bomb at his house. According to Heist, he is one of the best bombers alive and is incredibly dangerous. But one flaw in him is that he is addicted to social media and basically exposes his plans himself. He tells Asano to take care of Matsumi for the entire day as he has to attend to another job, and threatens to kill him if she even gets a scratch on her during the pee period. He ends up getting a notification on his phone as the bomber tweets that the second bomb has been set already. He looks around and spots a shadow moving through the corridors, so he immediately heads inside towards the infirmary, where the nurse asks if he wants anything, so he simply moves away back inside the class. He watches Mutsumi during the lunch break as she talks to her friends, when suddenly he gets the notification that the third bomb has been placed. As well, he looks around, defeated, and realizes how hard Mutsumi's life is. While he was deep in thought, the three Gus walk up to him and offer him some chocolate, which to their surprise he readily takes and eats. This shocks them as they ask what happened to him, as he wouldn't even speak to them before. Asano totally forgot about his social anxiety, but it starts creeping back in, and he blacks out. He wakes up in the infirmary, being overlooked by Matsumi, who asks whether he is fine. He thinks about how nice she is, and asks whether she is sure he is the right person for him. He claims that even after being childhood friends, he never knew about her family, or the fact that she has to fight to survive. Each and every day, hearing this, Matsumi gives him a karate chop to the head, telling him that he is wrong, and that he is the one who entered such a crazy family like his, and in truth, she always wanted to marry him. This relaxes him a bit when he suddenly spots a bomb placed on the ceiling of the room. About to go off, the bomb explodes with a loud bang, destroying everything inside the room. But Asano manages to save Matsumi by hiding beneath the couch. He realizes that the bomber is much smarter than they gave him credit for.
Putting out updates on Twitter to distract Asano and making him focus only on Mutsumi. He removes his coat and sure enough, there is a small bomb attached to his shirt. About to explode, he realizes that the bomber knew Asano would stay close by, so he used this to his advantage and basically made a bomb out of Asano, knowing that it would definitely hit Matsumi as well. Realizing he doesn't have much time, he decides to sacrifice himself to save Mutsumi and jumps out the window accepting his death. But to his surprise, Hayes saves him at the last moment. As he hangs by the wires, Hayes commends him for his actions and tells him that his job got over quickly, so he came to check on them. Asano looks at the bomb to realize that one of the wires got inside the bomb and stopped its timer, saving Asano from certain death. Heise tells Asano that they are family now, and family comes first. He promises that even though he hates Asano for marrying her. Dear sister, he would still give his life away to make sure Asano stays safe. He pulls Asano back inside, and while playing with the bomb, he tells them that their job isn't over yet. Just then, the other siblings also arrive in the room, and Shinzo delivers a handcuffed bomber on Hai's feet eyes, ties him up with his wire alongside the bomb, and throws him out into the sky, where the bomber explodes in a fantastic show of fireworks, while the Yosakira family, alongside Shinzo, watch it from the couch. The next morning, Asano wakes up after having a nightmare, in which he watches helplessly as Matsumi gets kidnapped. After waking up, he feels a little groggy and ends up stepping onto the tail of the doggy, who gives him a nice love bite on the arm. He comes down and is immediately patched up by Matsumi, who apologizes for the actions of the dogs and starts playing with it very cutely. This reminds him of how sad his dream was, and to make sure it never becomes the reality, he goes up to Futa and begs her to train him, so that he can become stronger. He claims that he wants to be able to protect Matsumi from every danger, as even last time. He was barely able to save her by luck, and would have died if not for Haze. She tells him that he is naive if he thinks that he can become strong so quickly, and shows him her strength, while explaining that she started training in all the different forms of martial arts when she was just 3 years old, and went on her first deadly mission at 6 years old. This means that even for someone with Yozakura genes, it took 3 years to master the martial arts. But it would be much longer for a normal person. She tells him that he is naive if he thinks that he can become stronger, just on the basis of his emotions, but is willing to give him a chance. She asks him whether he is willing to get into the Yazakiura all-out training program, which is probably the fastest way anyone can get stronger. He gets excited, but she tells him to hold his horses, as she puts the condition that he has to stay here in the Yazakura household for a complete month, and only then his real training will start. He thinks it would be super easy, as he just has to stay here. But the moment he gets up, a trapdoor activates, and he only barely manages to grab the edge, as he looks down to see sharp spikes beneath. Fuda comes to him and claims that she forgot to tell him, but the entire Yosakira household is rigged with deadly traps for spy training, so it's not going to be easy. But if he manages to survive, she will train him further. The next morning, he wakes up to the alarm sound of the ugliest-looking bird. But because he doesn't wake up in time, a bomb ends up going off inside the room. He somehow manages to get out of the smoky room, but activates another trap as a flamethrower emerges behind him and starts burning everything in its way. As he tries to run down the hall, he finally reaches the breakfast table, where Mutsumi tends to his wounds. And he asks how does she manage to evade all the traps. She replies that the traps don't activate for her, which surprises him, but Shin explains that the traps are controlled by a computer, and once a person is able to dodge and disable all the traps, they get accepted as a house member by the computer and get the privilege to activate or deactivate the traps. She further tells him that normally a person can probably clear all the traps in 2 years, which is a very long time. But before Asano could argue, he starts feeling a pain in his stomach. Futa looks at him and explains that all the food in this house is laced with a small amount of poison to build the tolerance against it, which won't kill them, but will definitely give them diarrhea. He immediately gets up and runs to the bathroom, only to see that it is completely locked and won't open unless and until he picks the locks and cracks all the codes from that day on. Asano's hellish daily routine begins, and while everyone else in the family is able to shut the bird down before it could explode, Asano ends up falling victim to it once again. The fridge is covered with lasers, so people need to be careful, but it isn't a problem for Shin, who uses her drones to get what she needs, or Futa, who uses her superhuman speed to get her drinks. But Asano ends up triggering the trap, which reveals a bunch of machine guns that shoot immediately to turn the TV on. He needs to use a gun and shoot the power button on the remote, but the recoil is way too much for him, and he ends up falling down every single time. At the lunch table, he still is unable to get used to the poison or crack the codes to the washroom, even with Matsumi's moral support. And when he tries to take a bath, the shower is meant to teach him how to survive Russian interrogation, which he hates. The next day, he goes to school and looks like a total corpse, barely answering any questions. It turns out that he has been forced to wear a 30 kilia shirt to help maintain his basic strength. even while resting after another tiring day. He tries to head back to his bedroom, but spots Matsumi, who has slept while working on the desk. He puts a blanket on top of her, and inspired by her hard work, he goes out and starts practicing his shooting skills. Mutsumu ends up waking up and takes him inside, where she offers him some tea and tells him to take it easy, as he has already protected her before. She reminds him that once when she got in high school, there were a bunch of bullies who were jealous of her popularity, so they tried to take her into the shed and cut her hair off. But he appeared at the last moment and took the scissors out of their hands. Before he began cutting his own hair, the bullies thought that he was a brain-dead psychopath and got scared away, which saved Matsumi from getting her hair chopped off. He promises her that he will get stronger and will always stay by her side, and heads back to sleep. A couple of weeks pass by, and he has learned to finally deal with the birds, shutting it off easily, and walks down to the living room by easily dodging the laser traps before he takes the pistol and shoots the power button to turn on the TV. Shinzo commends him for his skills, but Asano replies that he still can't change channels. Just then, Shin arrives inside the room and hands Shinzo the progress report of Asano ever since he came here later that day. The tubhead teaches him how to escape the poison gas trap, and he is even able to survive through the basic poisoned food, but when he tires the milk, he ends up getting sick again and runs off to the washroom, only to get stuck with the codes again. Suddenly, they realize that something is wrong and find him barely conscious on the floor. Fuda immediately takes him to the infirmary, where they check him out, and it turns out that he got a fever because of exhaustion. She then notices something and tears off his skin, only to reveal that he was wearing a fake bodysuit. Well, actually, he is completely battered and bruised. From the training, he didn't want Mutsumu to worry. That's why he asked the furry to make him a bodysuit. While getting healed by the buckethead, she tells him that his results were extraordinary, and they couldn't have been achieved without training. Yourself to death, she tells him to chill out, and hands him a book about coding. She tells him that he needs to be on bed rest till he has completely read the book, and only then he is allowed to take part in the training again. A week passes by, and finally, he is able to crack the locks of the washroom, making everyone celebrate, as he has finally passed the Yosakura House member test, and now is accepted by the computer. To his horror, Shinzo takes out a 100-kilo shirt, claiming that they can increase the intensity now Walsh and turns the difficulty of the traps. From normal to hard, he realizes that his adventures are just getting started, as he has a long way to go before he can protect himself and Matsumi from every danger. The next morning, Matsumi cooks breakfast once again, while Asano enters the kitchen, trying to put on her undergarments. She looks at him as if he was a freak, and tells him that he should worry about his weird fantasies and desires, as no matter how disturbing they are, she wouldn't divorce him. He claims that this is all a misunderstanding, and he just wants to practice his disguises. Suddenly, a beautiful blonde woman appears in the doorway, asking whether everything was all right. Asano doesn't know who she is, but Matsumi immediately recognizes that it's Kengo with his disguises. He immediately starts smothering Asano, trying to weird him out, but Matsumi tells him to knock it off and leave him alone. Just then, Hayes also appears in the kitchen and asks Matsumi for a goodbye kiss before he leaves. And this was too much, as she simply smacks both Kengo and Hayes on the head. Later that day, he meets up with Shinzo, who is about to go on a mission alone. Asano asks whether it's a dangerous mission, but he tells him that it's a low-difficulty mission, as he simply needs to find out information about a counterfeit money operation, and it shouldn't take much time. Asano wishes him luck and leaves for the school alongside Matsumi. While walking down to their school building, a ball traveling at a high speed almost hits Asano, but without even looking, he grabs the ball and then throws it back with an incredible power. Later in the afternoon, both him and Matsumi head onto the roof to have some lunch, when Matsumi tells him that he doesn't know it yet, but his strength and skills have increased a lot. Because of the training, he walks so silently now that people are starting to call him a ninja. After that, she asks whether he is free after school today, as she needs some help with her work. Asano obviously agrees and heads back home, where she sits down on her desk and starts stamping a horde of paperwork, while telling Asano what to do, as he brings more and more documents, which she analyzes at a super high speed, and also finds errors and other problems in them. She makes Asano her paw and tells him to send emails to some of the investors to increase their stocks. while telling Asano to ignore the forged divorce papers that Heisa has created to try and break their marriage. While shuffling through the file, she notices that one of the reports by Kengo seems to be incomplete, and because he has done this several times before, she gets pissed and takes Asano into Kengo's room. The room is completely filled with his clothes, to the brim where they can't even see anything. Matsumi tells him to come out, and he magically appears on top of his clove mound, while Matsumi tells him to complete his report and submit it immediately. Kengo doesn't take her seriously and simply starts eating his sushi, while telling Matsumi to stop acting like a grandmother. This pisses her off, and she grabs her handcuffs to lay down some Yasakira-style punishment. Kengo realizes that he is in danger and jumps out of the mound to escape the room. Thanks to his training, Asano has become faster and blocks his way immediately. But Kengo is smart and forces him to drop his guard by becoming Matsumi. He then runs past him outside, while an angry Matsumi activates the hibernation mode of the house to completely bar it from the outside world. As giant walls are erupted all around the house, she tells Asano that there is no way of escaping this house once this mode is activated. Meanwhile, Shinzo crawls through the air vents as he spots the giant operation being run by a millionaire who has already put 60% of his currency in circulation. He travels through the ducts and realizes that these people are working with a highly intelligent person who designed all these safety measures. He puts on his Apple Vision Pro, and unlike in real life, his glasses are actually useful, as he is able to see through the containers to find a bunch of fake money. He drops down the hatch to find a secret case, which he is able to hack, and gets the framed picture of a note, which might be very important. Before he could do anything, though, an alarm is sounded, and he starts running away. Back at the Yasakura house, Matsumi starts checking all their rooms one by one. She goes into her room, where she uses an infrared device to check for his signs but doesn't find anything. Asano is odd at the amount of hobbies she has, as he looks at the painting she recently made. They then head over to Shin's room, who is busy playing a physical game, which she is not very good at. They then head over to the Buckethead's room, who tells them that he will explode Kengo if he sees him. They finally head over to Heisa's room, only to find the entire room covered with Matsumi's pictures. Asano wonders whether Kengo could have escaped, but Matsumi tells him that it's impossible with the house on lockdown. Suddenly, all the other siblings meet up with Matsumi and Asano, asking whether they were able to find Kengo. When suddenly Asano hears something and turns around to see Kengo's face on Mama Lisa. As it turns out that he was hiding in the picture frame, Kengo immediately runs away and around a corner, while Asano follows him but suddenly screams as he falls down. Matsumi runs over to check on him and finds him on the ground, rubbing his head, as he claims that Kengi threw the frame at him and ran inside the cavity in the wall. Matsumi shouts loudly, claiming that he must have found a way out of the lockdown made, and angrily makes her way back to Kengo's room, claiming that she will remove the lockdown soon. As soon as Asano enters the room, though, she immediately handcuffs him and claims that she is not as stupid and knows that Kengo is impersonating Asano. Right now, she claims that there is no way to escape the lockdown, so Kengo must have switched places with Asano and hid him, in the hopes that Matsumi will release the lockdown, after which he could run away. Kengo accepts his defeat and removes the mask, and together they start looking for the paperwork she needed. Later that day, Asano eats the curry made by Matsumi, which is very tasty, so he asks for the secret ingredient, and Matsumi replies that it's cyanide. Asano immediately starts feeling sick and excuses himself to pick up a call. He picks the phone only to find Shinzo on the other end, screaming at Matsumi for help. They get on a video call and Shinzo cries that he ended up getting in a gunfight, but he didn't expect so many guys, and now all his bullets are over and he has no weapons. She tells Asano that Shinzo is an extremely good spy, but he only depends on his weapons, and if he doesn't have a weapon, he becomes a super big wimp. She asks whether Asano can take his weapons to him, and he immediately agrees. He dresses up and carries a small bag as he enters the highly secure building and starts walking through the corridors. Unfortunately, he is not fast enough and gets caught by a guard, who puts a gun to his head. He remembers his training and pushes the gun back before grabbing the arm in a lock as he pummels his face with his elbow. Hearing this, a bunch of other guards arrive at the scene. He slams one in the face with his knee, but gets caught by the other guard. The third guard tries to stab him, but his clothing protects him as he punches him away, before breaking the last guy's nuts to secure a victory to his surprise. Another guard arrives, so he quickly grabs his gun, which Shinzo gave him, and uses it to shoot a massive electric bolt at him. which incapacitates him immediately. He finally finds Shinzo, who immediately holds on to him for dear life and thanks him for the gun, which he keeps rubbing against his face. Suddenly, some more guards enter the room, but Shinzo's personality changes as he gets up and shoots all the guards within a split second before giving Asano the framed note. He exits the room and deals with all the goons with extreme ease as he shoots all of them down before throwing a grenade at the last group and shooting it midair. He then takes Asano as they start exiting the building, but Asano ends up getting shot in the leg by a sniper. He falls to the ground as he starts bleeding out, while the sniper tells Shinzo to drop his weapons. Shinzo follows the commands to make sure Asano survives and drops the gun, but Asano remembers that Shinzo can turn anything into a weapon if it has a good grip, so he throws a fork at him, which he grabs and shoots it at the sniper's barrel, causing it to misfire. This gives him enough time to grab his gun and shoot the adversary, saving Asano's life. By the time night falls, Shinzo starts walking back, while carrying Asano on his back as he thanks him for saving his life. Asano thanks him back, saying that he would have been dead if it wasn't for Shinzo saving his life from immediate death. Meanwhile, a hobo enters another facility and beats every single guard there with a hammer, asking them for the location of their leader. But they all refuse to give away the location, so he bludgeons them to death as he takes out the picture of his next target, which turns out to be Asano. Several days have passed by since the freaky shootout incident at the factory, with Shinzo Asano's leg has healed quite a bit, and the new spy family member. Asano walks down a street by the side of a lonely road. It is dark already, but he has a bright look on his face while talking to Mitsumi on his cell phone. She is telling him the backstory about a special Ferris wheel in their city. Legend has it that a long time ago, a couple had gotten into a horrible argument with each other, which quickly turned into the biggest fight they had ever had. But after going on the Ferris wheel, they forgot all about their argument and fell in love again ever since then. It has been called the matchmaking Ferris wheel. Asano giggles at the silliness of the story, and she continues to tell him that she would also like to spend a day with him there on their next day off riding the Ferris wheel, since the rumor is that any couple that watches the sunset together from it will be happy together for a long, long time.
Subscribe for more videos.